Good afternoon, everyone. Dan Whitmarsh here from HR Strategies Consulting with my colleague and friend, Stephanie.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today for our webinar called Welcome Aboard, Now What? Today, we're going to be focusing on some learning and development and what you can do to improve the employee experience. So as Dan said, my name is Stephanie Austri, and I'm the marketing manager here at HR Strategies Consulting. Before we get started, I'd like to just take care of a couple of quick housekeeping items. So we will be sharing both a copy of the slides that we go through today, as well as the recording following this session. So don't worry about taking copious notes. You will get the deck later on this week. And if you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please do add them to the chat and we will try to address them. And we will also save some time for questions at the very end of the presentation. So we'll do our best to take care of any questions you have. And I'd like to start by officially introducing my co-presenter today, Dan Whitmarsh. So Dan is a solutions engineer here at HR Strategies Consulting. He has over 20 years of experience helping clients achieve positive business outcomes through employee engagement initiatives, talent management process reengineering, and adoption of HR technologies. So Dan is going to have a starring role in today's webinar, and I'll be tagging along as his not so wacky sidekick. So we will start today with a quick introduction to HR Strategies Consulting for those of you who are unfamiliar with us. We'll then look at the key elements to get your employees to productivity when it comes to learning and development. And we'll also go through an exercise to help you be able to assess your organization's ability to effectively deliver training. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have time for questions at the end and talk about next steps. So let's get started. So HR Strategies has been reimagining HR to get the most from an organization's HR investments for over 20 years. We believe that employees are the foundation of an organization. So we focus on ways we can improve the employee experience. We have two lines of business, our human capital management practice and our IT practice. And we bring those two together to deliver holistic solutions that align with our clients' business strategies. So with our HCM practice, we provide advice, insights, and expertise to address any people issues facing firms today. And our IT practice focuses on how to identify, purchase, implement, integrate, and support technology solutions to achieve an organization's business goals. So if we look at the employee lifecycle wheel, if you've come to any of our previous webinars, you'll be familiar with this diagram. We're basically working our way through the employee lifecycle and focusing on different areas where the candidate or employee experience can be improved. So our last couple of webinars in February and March, we were in the blue portion of the employee life cycle, the joining portion. So we looked at the hiring to onboarding processes and sort of that new the candidate experience and ways to improve that. Now we're moving into the growing part of the circle, and we'll be focusing, as I said, on learning today. So there are similarities between improving the candidate experience as well as the employee experience. A positive employee experience, you find that employees are more productive, loyal, and willing to recommend a company to their network. and that works to drive key business outcomes like increased revenue, improved customer experience, and better brand reputation. So that's just a couple of reasons why that employee experience is a key one to be focused on by organizations. So I think with that, I will turn it over to my buddy, Dan.
Thanks, Stephanie. Great introduction and welcome everybody. If you're a returning visitor, great. Good to have you back. If you're new to the equation, welcome. And we've got some exciting stuff for you today. Well, the title of the topic was Welcome Aboard, Now What? And we set that earlier in the year to align with the wheel view that Stephanie had on the previous slide, talking about the various phases of the employee's journey through an organization. So, you know, we've rounded out the welcome aboard in the onboarding section. It's really the now what happens next. I love the analogy, and I think this imagery captures it very well, of a bunch of employees getting on a bus, heading to their first day at work. And this is really borrowing the concepts by the great Jim Collins in the book, Good to Great, where, you know, we understand the processes and the techniques involved to get the right people on the bus, but then we got to get them to work and get them doing stuff. And that's what we're going to really explore today. So, you know, you think about what happens next. You've onboarded them, they're showing up at your door. Traditionally, we deploy some new hire curriculum. And then if you think about it logistically, you know, after that's done, then we deploy training to impact their time to productivity. So you may have an established measure of how tenured somebody has to be before they actually start earning their keep at an organization. It's a pretty common measure. But what we're trying to do is increase or speed up that time to productivity so that the business remains and becomes profitable. And then if you think about that employee's journey, you know, they typically get some more training along the way as things change or new things are added. And then possibly, you know, they might pick up some credentialing or certification, which is traditionally disguised as training, right? We've given them a stamp of approval that they've reached level A of XYZ certification or credentialing, which it might entitle them to some more pay or recognition, or then it traditionally opens up the door for, guess it, more training, right? So as that training evolves, they continue on their journey to get more things, which is usually then rounded out by a cycle of performance management and career planning, which ends up in more development and training. So you can see a real common refrain here of what has to happen. And then if they're lucky, eventually they get to retire when they get the complimentary watch and cake. But you think about your journey as an individual employee, it's a continuous cycle of training. It happens every day and we don't realize this. And often we push training into product improvement or process reinvention, and it is still training. And we need to never lose sight of that capability to do all of those training initiatives. Now, where our organization is really focused these days, and it's becoming a very big trend. We're going to see some data and research nearer to the end of the presentation today that talks about this, is the importance of CE, which is from our previous series of webcasts, the candidate experience. How important is that? How does it make them engaged? How does it make them willing to contribute to your organization? And when they become, you know, they were the CE, the candidate, and they're now an employee, we have to deal with employee experience. So you're going to hear us use these words, employee experience and human experience management, HXM. This is a big, you know, I wouldn't say it's a buzzword, it's a trend. It's just a focus of how we've taken all the conventional constructs in HR and are retooling them to bring a better experience for the end user. I mean, I'm sure if you're my age or in my age area, you can probably look back to some of the original days of using pieces or tools or equipment or technology at work in their infancy and thought, oh my gosh, that was a painful experience. And we're trying to get past that. We want software and encounters between employees and the organization to be a real great experience. And that's what a common theme we're going to talk about today. So we've got great candidate experiences really do knowingly, and I don't think anybody can deny this, they increase the relationship, prompting candidates to apply again or refer others or bring others on board or even continue to be loyal to your brand even if they don't get the job. But when they're becoming part of your organization, I'm looking here at the middle band, organizations with a great positive experience are more productive per employee. They have more loyalty. They're willing to recommend, and then it's the internal portion of bringing in referrals from the great employees that you already have. And these deliver great business outcomes. You know, we see all kinds of data from McKinsey and Deloitte talking about a 25% increase in revenue per employee for companies that have a great human experience for their existing employees. They get a better customer experience. So if it becomes part of your culture where being a good experience or presenting good experiences to employees then translates, obviously, if you look at all Richard Branson and the Virgin businesses, they give better experiences to their end customers. And this just fortifies and strengthens your brand at every opportunity. So we really, at a very high level here, the objective of this slide is to demonstrate the value or the importance of the experience for candidates and employees. So we need to look at it from three lenses. You think about technology and productivity. I don't think there's anybody in the working world today who could deny the impact of technology on individual employees, whether it comes back to the Henry Ford and the advent of the assembly line and how they redid things and leveraged technology across a line, or even to modern days where we use technology in all kinds of aspects. I can remember in my career, which is lengthy, in the late 1980s being laughed out and escorted out of some of the Fortune 100 Canadian companies, trying to tell them that they were going to need to use the internet to recruit engineers and software people. And this was in the late 80s when the internet wasn't even really widely used at work yet. People thought we were out of our heads, but look at us now. I mean, if you want to hire people, it's all done online. You don't do things the old way. So technology has changed in multiple facets, in multiple ways, the way we do work. And I think there's no denying that technology's had a big impact on productivity across the board. The second way to look at this is how technology impacts engagement, okay? And we are coming to the learning, don't fret, we're not straying too far. Technology needs to make employees excited. They need to want to do this and they need to grasp that concept. It needs to be cutting edge, right? Further, it needs to demonstrate that organizations are progressive or at least committed to delivering a great experience for them. So they feel wanted, they feel the love, right? These are important elements of the equation. It should also be a part of the value proposition that you promote within your organization. And then if it's real and it's true and people inside the organization are excited about the technologies they get to use, then you can cascade that outside the organization and use it as part of your employee value proposition in the recruiting process and saying, we really do like this stuff. And that's very exciting for people who want to come and join an organization who articulates that as a value proposition. Okay, so I want to stop for a second. And by the way, if there's comments and things in there, Stephanie, I'm hoping you can monitor if people have questions and comments, and we can interject and weave them into the slide if relevant. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
I want you to think about these numbers. What do these numbers have in common? So we're talking now about technology and retention. We just saw how it played productivity. We saw how it plays out with engagement. Now we're talking specifically about turnover and losing valuable talent in your organization. 52, 24, 13. So this is great research that just came, or I should say just, but was from G2 Software Industry's 2019 State of the Software Happiness Industry. 52% of employees are unhappy with the software they use at work. 24% of employees have considered leaving because of software. 13 say that software has made them leave. Right? So you literally, half of your people don't like the tools they've got in their fingertips. Half of them, again, or a quarter of the entire workforce, are considering leaving your organization because you're not giving them good technology to use. And then just over half of that group, again, of the 24, have said that this has been the significant deciding factor that's caused them to leave an organization, right? So why are we talking about this? Because we're trying to understand how human experience management affects learning, right? Which is the ultimate goal of what we're going to do today. So let's look at this. What does all of this add up to? You know, so you're thinking, hey, this is all great. It's nice to be really nice to people. Well, it produces business results. That's why it's one of the big reasons we're doing this. We just, you know, it is great to be nice to people, absolutely. But is it nice to do that and actually reap a reward? Yes, and that will happen. It definitely changes the time to productivity, which is a key factor out of all new hire curriculum in particular, right? It decreases new hire turnover. It increases employee engagement. And then it creates a leading edge technology experience, right? And that's a brand, that's a statement, that's a fact, that's something you should be proud of at your organization, and you should cascade internally and externally around the organization. And then finally, it helps you achieve level 4 Kirkpatrick learning model. And that's like a big, whoa, hold on, who is this Kirkpatrick learning model? There are lots of, you know, I'm going to talk about it actually instead of just reference it for a second, because it's really a fundamental piece of learning. So let's look at this Kirkpatrick learning model. It may be new to some, for others, I hope that you have encountered this. Kirkpatrick was a industry innovator and really pioneered the way learning was deployed across organizations. We're going to talk about this briefly here with his model, and then we'll see it again later when we talk about some of the research by Josh Berzin, who's indicating that we're starting to do a shift from this model. But the principles here still are a guiding light and a beacon that we need to be attentive to. Really, reaction. This is the first phase. How measure your participants' initial reaction to gain understanding of the training program, right? Secondly, learning. So measure how much information was effectively absorbed during the training and map it to the program and where those people work and what they do, right? Third, behavior. Measure how much your training has influenced the behavior of their participants and evaluate how this translated to the job at hand. And then the pinnacle result here, results, is really measuring and analyzing the impact your training has had on the business level, the program, and to be sure it's tied to the individual's efforts. So I wanted to make that a little simpler. I took my own cut at creating this language because that is language from the Kirkpatrick model. Really, reaction. How does the employee feel about having to do this? Every time, you know, in a lot of cultures, organizations, if you stepped up and said, hey, we're going to do a training initiative, you're going to see eyes roll and shoulders slump. People don't want to go through that. And that's part of where we're going to get to today, is understanding your culture, your individual organization's readiness for change. And then secondly, how much of the content did they actually take in when you delivered the learning? So there's all kinds of thought and philosophy around the nature of the content, how it's going to be delivered, how you're going to assess the absorption. And then the third level here, behaviors. How do the managers see a change in behavior as a result of the training? Because all too often we find that tail of the dog just slumps off immediately after somebody's taking training. They get jazzed about it and then they revert back to old behaviors very fast. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. We want to look for opportunities to reinforce that. The last pinnacle is, did the change in the collective behaviors deliver a measurable result in your organization? Okay, because if you just said, hey, it's time to do some training and it's expected to roll out an off-the-shelf piece of content, you should expect to be disappointed. I definitely, that is the case. Okay, so that's a little bit about the Kirkpatrick model. As I said, we're going to come back and talk about this in vis-a-vis the newer slants on training and how things have changed when we get to some current trends and topics. But it's really important to understand these kind of cascading levels about the users and the constituents involved. And if you think about it from this perspective, the results, learning, and behavior. So we're looking at we're leaving out the initial employee reaction. We're looking at the actual learning, the behavior, and the results, and putting them together and how they happen. You know, the learning is really the manager, how to be productive and fit in and be recognized for it. The behavior is the individual employee's contributions, the allowing of new hire to acclimatize to the culture and encourage them to bring their best ideas forward. And then the results are what's reaped and recognized at an organizational level. So we've got immersed in culture with skills and essentials that are essential to the business. And these are the pinnacle. And coincidentally, I said to Stephanie joking the other day, we should have taken this pie chart and flipped it upside down, so it kind of made a nice little peace sign in there to bring some yen to the moment. Zen, sorry, to the moment.
I said no.
So let's come back to the concept of new hire curriculum. It's training, right? That's what we've all commonly agreed on. Well, let's start to talk about training and some of the essential pieces and requirements here. We've got training. On the left, it can be compliance-based training. You need to do things, or it can be skill development training. So let's look at those two pieces, because they vary dramatically in how they're deployed, the methodologies to use those types of training, and even their purpose. One is to cover CYA, I guess is the expression, or cover your backside. And then the other is more about changing behaviors, okay? But when we talk about compliant learning, we're largely talking about certifications, policy acknowledgement, on-the-job training, which are OJTs, or kind of checklists that are advanced. So most systems are all capable of managing these, and they're looking at making sure we're all on a common page, or we all have common understanding about things. They're not so much about what do you want to be when you grow up. They're more about, let's make sure that we're walking in step and we get through this. So compliant training has its purpose. Many times compliant training rests within just an employee record system. Do you have this certification? Yes. Can you show me that you have a copy of it? Yes. And when does it expire? This date, so we can set up an automatic reminder to make sure you renew it. Okay. Or it could rest with a learning management system. I'm going to talk more about those acronyms in a moment, where you say, here's the specific training, and when you complete this type of training, you get it back. A good example might be some type of health and safety or OSHA compliance, or in Canada we have WMIS. There's all kinds of programs like this that allow us to track. You have to attend these type of courses and get updates on new standards with these things, then get certified, and then every year, or even a CPR effort would be a great example of kind of compliant learnings. Okay, so let's talk about development learnings, because this is, I wouldn't say the more important, I wouldn't say the bigger portion, but it's a very different portion, right? It is categorized by a few essential pieces. There is prescribed learning. This is what your manager is telling you need to take and do differently, right? This is what managers are cascading to you and saying, we need you to take this course and get to this particular level of proficiency with this content. And they have reasons for doing so. A lot of it is about the Kirkpatrick Model, and how you want to see some business results. We're going to see how that connects shortly to a development plan. Then there are subscribed development plans. These are things that me as an individual, I want to see myself get better at. So I've elected to take, and they can or may not require manager, approval if they're delivered within a work context. Certainly you're entitled to study whatever you like outside of work, but then there is external learning that might be relevant to your work. So a lot of learning systems, ours included, typically allow for the request to take outside courses, curriculum that may or may not be supported to varying degrees, and then bring them in and having them imported into a system or recognized within your current work experience on your file, or giving you certain accreditation that allows you for certain perks, privileges, or extra entitlements, or actually the opportunities to do unique sections of work that require somebody with a credential to have it done. Okay, so what's happening in learning? It's getting crowded. It's getting busy. It is, I'll be honest, 5-10 years ago, it was on the lower echelon of all of my talent management modules. It is rapidly rising to the top for me. I really see this as one of the biggest opportunities to change work and the way people interact with work and affect productivity of organizations. There is no doubt that all of the pieces are important to understand how you're managing your talent, but learning alone rests with the biggest burden of the ability to change your course. That's a heavy statement. Let's write that down, Stephanie. Okay. There's some great research out there on untangling the HR market in 2021 by Josh Berzin, the Berzin Academy. You know, we're definitely don't want to ignore his contributions in the space, and we're going to see a lot of data that comes from him in a moment. But let's first and foremost, as we start to talk about learning, understand the language of learning. There are lots of acronyms we're going to kick around, and just for continuity's sake, I want to make sure we're all kind of on the same page as we do this. So first word, LMS, short for Learning Management System. Okay, so this is an enterprise-wide software application that allows for the delivery of training content within your organization. You know, so you can say, hey, group A and this part of the organization gets these courses, everybody gets these courses, and you can dictate when they go out, how they get communicated, the delivery of them, and then tracking of any completion ratios, surveys, assessments, grades that come from them, tracking of all of the details and data, and reporting on the ability to manage the distribution of content. In the olden days, we used to call this the corporate university platform, right? More and more, this is a very agile marketplace. We're very fortunate to have a few software partners and platforms that we use here. Some of them are really so strong and robust, you know, that it's incredible how deep they are. I had to do a demo just yesterday, in fact, on learning management, and I could have easily gone for 3 hours in the software, just showing some of the features and functionality at a high level. Never mind how it actually did all of this, just the structure and the functions. Others are really simple and agile and allow for companies to be pretty quick to drop, deliver, and deliver training. The next acronym I want to talk about, unfortunately, in my opinion, looks far too much like LMS. And if you have mild reading issues like myself at my age, I often blur over these in paragraphs and think, what are they talking about? Until I decide, oh, they had the C in there. So this stands for Learning Content Management Systems. So these are not necessarily the systems that do the enterprise management of the training content. This is a system that creates learning content that goes into an LMS. Simple enough, okay? Now, the industry is getting more and more advanced. One of our platforms is actually a hybrid solution. It allows for content management and enterprise-wide distribution, and I'm positive that that is the direction we're going to see all systems go in the not too distant future. Next, we have content. So say you own a learning management system. Well, there are numerous providers, we had them on the last slide, that allow you to go out and buy content. You can just go in and buy industry standard, which is typically SCORM or AICC compliant or tin can. And these are formats, just like you would have a Word document or an Excel document or a PDF. These are just a format of training. And you literally buy it, license it, and just import it with one click into your system, and then choose how you want to roll it out to your organization. So those content pieces can be shelved. Some examples of great companies we work with, Skillsoft, Open Sesame, to name a few. There's, oh boy, if I went back a slide or two, it'll all be there. There is Udemy, yeah, LinkedIn. Well, so those are a little different, actually. Let's talk about those ones. So when we talk about shelf content, it might not be a system where you buy it. It might be what's called a MOOC, M-O-O-C. And these are massive objects of online content. So you can connect to places like Lynda through LinkedIn or Udemy or open content networks that allow you to take content and import it right into your system, whether it's paid or free. There are lots of variations in how that is delivered. And then the last piece we have on here is custom content. So this is where you could go to a large number of providers, even the Open Sesames and the Lyndas of the world will love to engage with you on this and say, hey, we have very specific training needs and we have a vision of how we would like our training to look like. And we'd like you to design something and give it to us in a SCORM or AICC compliant format so we can put it in our system. So you can actually get custom content to load right into your system. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit about how all of that content comes together. All right, let's change gears. Any comments or questions, Stephanie, from anybody on the chat pane at this point?
Nothing yet.
No, do we need to send out a poll or prod them or poke them to be interactive if possible?
I think everybody was busy with the Scrabble tiles, putting their words together while you went through that, so.
Okay, good point. I did see the UAT in there. It just stuck in my head. I don't know why. All right, beyond the LMS. Let's talk to this, because a learning management system by itself is a great thing. A learning management system as part of an integrated or holistic talent suite is an even better thing, okay? Learning, as we talked about, is prescribed to get new hires and get them on board, right? But you have to think about learning and how it connects into other modules or other functions in the talent management function or HR function at large. It can, you know, beyond the LMS, learning can be grown from conversations between an employer and a manager. You know, just recently I was having a conversation with my manager and we highlighted something that I was terribly ignorant of, and I didn't even realize this was an aspect of software services. And lo and behold, it led to me taking some courses and getting enrolled in some curriculum about it. So, I mean, that could be, you know, in casual conversation, hey, you should learn about this, or you should learn how to do that. That happens all the time. But more often, it's formalized out of performance management cycle, right? So part of our annual performance cycle, for example, might say that Dan needs to maintain a level 4 to 5 for communication skills. And I might have just scored a 3. So I'm a deficit 1. I need to be a 4 to keep my position, or that's what the expectation is. So I've got a gap of 1 point. If I had scored a 2, it could be 2. And now in most systems, there will be an opportunity to prescribe competency-based courses or curriculum that are designed to impact that skill. So my manager could say, hey, as a result, click, 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 I'm subscribing these 5 options for you, pick 1 or 2, however your system works, that you need to take, so that hopefully when we get to the end of the year cycle for performance, we're going to do a final check-in and we're going to see your 3 competency level move to a 4. Okay, so that's a very formalized approach, which is very common and driven from performance management cycles to impact skills and competencies. Another way is that they can be driven from succession plans, and this really has 2 opposing views of how we look at this. So think about it as an individual contributor in an organization, and I think, my gosh, one of these days when Stephanie retires, I want to be the marketing manager for our company. And I look into this talent management system, or I do some investigating. If you have a full-grown, very mature talent management system, you could see that that job of marketing manager is a critical job. It's a key job, or however your language is described, and it has the 10 skills and competencies that you need to have to be in that position. And I could look at some of those, I don't have any of those skills, or I don't have any of those competencies, and I can start exploring through the learning management system content in there that is categorized to align to those strengths or competencies, and start subscribing myself to be better at those things, so that when and if I do get ready, it's coming, right? I'm started that path. I have some competencies there. The other side of this is from the top, where an executive team might look at a bench strength and go, oh, Stephanie is, definitely has announced plans that she's going to retire to a beach hut in Tortuga in the near future. We need to plan for her imminent departure. And what are the critical factors and strengths and competencies? And who do we have in the organization that has those? And then how do we start cascading learning down to those people who might want to be part of that role? So we're doing it looking up as an individual contributor and how I'm going to be successful in the organization, but also looking down from succession planning and thinking about the bench strength in your organization. Okay. And last, it can be delivered as part of role readiness assessments. So I've seen this in many cases where an organization or an individual thinks they're ready to assume a succession plan and move forward into their goal. And they will launch some type of readiness assessment that goes out to them and their direct reports or colleagues or peers for a quick assessment to say, is this person ready for this role? So there's lots of ways that the training is impacted, not just within learning as a silo, but across the talent management functions within the organization at large. Okay.
Yeah, just before you move on, Dan,
Mhm.
I just want to be conscious of time. So I just want to give you a little time check that we're 1:35, so you
We,
can adjust accordingly.
we've got 3 hours, don't we? Just
Well,
kidding.
when you use that example before, I was like, uh-oh, these people don't know what they're in for.
No, I wouldn't do that. Yep. All right. Yeah, we'll get there. Thank you for that warning. Trends to be on the lookout for. So I've got a few of them here. I'm going to bullet out on a sheet, and then we're going to look at some specific data pertaining to them. One, micro learning. This is huge. I really didn't pay attention to this almost until February WebEx, where we uncovered top trends in research, and this was creeping up across all of the HR function as a major player, as micro learning. Number two, in-system delivery. And what we mean by this is the ability to actually not make them go elsewhere to a learning management system, take content, but deliver it right in their workflow of the pieces of software equations that they're working on at the very moment. Number three, the importance of soft skills. Boy, it was pretty clear in my day not long ago where, hey, you want to be an engineer, you need to know metallurgy, you needed to know civil engineering traits, you needed to know these things. And these are hard skills and traits, math, science, etc. But soft skills are becoming the new currency in how we evaluate somebody's business effectiveness. So that's crept up on the list as well. Fourth, sorry, Google ability. I don't know if that's a word, but I like it because I think it gets used a lot. How easy is the training to understand and connect to pieces? Do we make training difficult, or can you just go and say, hey, I need to find the piece pertaining to just this, which really is a variation of in-system delivery, but just not necessarily in the system, just allowing you to access a massive amount of training material in an organized way so that just the immediate pertinent results come back to you, okay? VR is huge. Now, I actually haven't done any of this myself, but I have talked to colleagues and peers who have. It's very impacting on how fast it can cycle time to productivity. Putting people in immersive VR experience and replicating an actual environment can be really critical for customer service roles, or even for more detailed roles where there is a lot of technology and pieces involved in the equation. One of my favorites, we talked about it earlier, post-training reinforcements. How do you prevent that tail off from happening so that things don't fall off and you revert back to old behaviors? And then last, recognition of training accomplishments and credentialing. There is nothing more dejecting than taking and putting significant effort into a project or an accomplishment, getting an accomplishment, getting a piece of credentialing, and not having your manager even acknowledge it, right? So there has to be a connection between what you want to do, what the organization and your manager wants to do, and there has to be recognition associated with it for it to be of value. Okay, let's jump into the micro learning or understanding these trends. This is where I promised you we'd talk about the Kirkpatrick model. This is a very busy table, so we're going to give it to you in the deck. And again, it is courtesy of Bears and Associates from the Untangling HR Tech Market. Really, but if you look at where we are, this is a good chronology. It talks about instructional design and Kirkpatrick model, how the users were impacted in the systems. But you can see as we've shifted into the early 2000s, past 2010, into the 2018s, we're heading towards what Bearson calls these capability academies, where people can access and manage their own credentials and details in a very nimble and agile way. It's still, LMSs are evolving to accommodate this, by the way. But we're in the learning in the flow of work right now. Or as we describe with one of our platforms, with the Litmus platform, it's learning in the now. What's happening right now and what do I need to do right now to get this? So this is a great little illustration of how information comes together. When you think about micro learning, it means I need help now. It's got to be short, a couple minutes or less. It's got to be a topic driven or centric around a problem, and it can be delivered as easy as a quick video or a text. A lot of great applications out there like Glide, which we use with our application, but it's very different than macro learning, which is I want to learn something new, and then it requires a commitment to go outside and get that information and those resources and collect to bigger systems. We also talked about the soft skills. Again, this is from Berzin, and he just gave us this nice graphic here that it represents all of the top soft skills that really were intangible or almost unmeasurable a decade ago, and now we're part of the framework of learning and how we understand competencies and skills and their contributions to work production. Last is learning will appear everywhere. So this comes back to the Google ability or in-system type of learning. It needs to be connected everywhere. So in applications, they're all changing the user interface to make more of that human experience management system that we started this talk track about. This is trying to bring it back full circle. How do we deliver quick access points for people who might get stuck on a particular portion of an interface and understand what they need to do or how this impacts downflow work? This is where we're looking at delivering micro learning in system and possibly even making it Googleable. Okay. Last portion here is to really talk about the capabilities academies. So it's really about the next wave of learning of how people manage their own portfolio of capability academies. And this has a lot to do with credentialing and tracking information. And I honestly think that this is going to have a significant impact on the way resumes are designed and manufactured and delivered in the next decade. We're going to see a radical shift in capabilities instead of skill-based or reporting-based incidents. And ATSs are already picking up on that and changing the way they process information. Okay, so and here's a quick slide on VR marketing. A 96% VR training, 96% reduction in training from 8.8 hours of training to 15 minutes, right? Producing an impact on customer satisfaction in 6 months. So it's huge. So we're all ready to start some training, right? Everybody's good?
So just before you get into that, so there was a question just about where Berzin was saying learning is going. So to the person who asked that, if you do have any further questions, please let us know. But I think that was a pretty comprehensive look at some materials produced by Josh. And again, when we share this deck, we will have the URL to that entire document for you to be able to go and download it because it is a very insightful document, as you can see by how much we just went through there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a real ground shaker for sure. All right, so you guys on this performance, this production here, we've all now understand training, right? It's good. We're experts at it, so we need to start some training right away. Not so fast. Okay. What's the current state of your resources? And from that, we need to understand employee readiness. How, this is the reaction phase of Kirkpatrick, right? What's the manager readiness? How influential or effective are our managers going to be? Because really they're the front line that are going to monitor the uptake in training and hopefully reinforce support to make sure that it stays and sustains itself. And then more importantly, what's the organizational capabilities here? Because if we just said, hey, we need to have better customer service, and we think going out and buying a piece of content curated from a vendor and liking it and then plugging it in and delivering it is effective, that's a mistake. That's not going to produce a result. We need to understand what our role is from all three of these aspects to make sure that training has the biggest possible potential, right? So how does your organization measure up? We're going to give you today a quick audit that you can use. It's a simple Excel document. If you've been part of our past webcasts, you may have seen we did a similar version for understanding candidate experience. This is really about doing a talent development planning. So it's a workbook with 3 tabs into it. One is an introduction tab, assessment, and a scorecard. You want to save a copy and save it as a template so that you can download it and use it multiple times, because doing it once, you need to understand your results and then think about how you're going to change things to get to a better point until you're sure that the training is going to take effect. So with no further ado, let me look at that document. Stephanie, are you seeing the Excel document up now?
Yep, I can see it.
Awesome. So really, cover page, not a lot of work to do here. It takes just 1 minute to read through this. And when you're ready, you click on the blue arrow. And what we've designed are 15 questions, 7 questions around the organizational readiness, 5 questions around manager readiness, and 3 questions on employee readiness. And when you're finished with the answer in the questions, you'll click the blue arrow. But really what we're asking you to do is think about this question. I don't want you to gather resources. You may want to even do it as a team so that you're getting a more tethered or manageable view, and say, how clearly does our organization define business goals and cascade them throughout the organization? And you can pick and say, yeah, we're okay at that. Well, how clear are the connection points between the defined training content and the impact this content will have on our organizational business goals? Oh, we're really good at that. Okay. How conducive is our culture to change and ongoing development initiatives? We're really good at that. How committed is the organization to investing in the development of the workforce? Yeah, that's pretty good, right? So I'm just getting your gut hunch for how you're going to answer these questions. How well does your organization accommodate employees who wish to develop in place? Meaning, you know, they just want to stay where they are, but they do want to be good at what they do. Okay, we got a plan for that. And I'm not going to go through all of these questions here. I'd like for you to read them and think about them and turn them over in your head. But as you answer all of these questions, and I'll just take the liberty of randomly completing a bunch of them here. Maybe our employees are the weak link. And when we answer those questions, then you can click the blue arrow and it's going to grade you. So for organizational readiness, out of a possible 35 points, we scored 27. That's not bad. That's a C+. But for manager readiness, we only scored 16 out of a possible 25, which is a D. And for employee readiness, we scored a possible 7 out of 15, which unfortunately is an F. So overall, our rating is 50 out of 75. We've got a D+. What are you going to do to prepare for the future of your development plans in your organization? Do you need to focus on particular elements here and move the needle? These two were really weak. This one's strong. Let's pick on things here that we know we can change and talk about them as a meeting and a team so that we understand not only do we have to do something, we have to do it well, because that's a big fallacy. Companies just think doing stuff produces a result. No, doing things well produces a result, okay? So this is going to be yours to have. And then again, if you save it as a template, you can come back and take the assessment multiple times, and in real time, it will change these variables so that if you just clicked a few of those and go back, you can see I've just upgraded my score, and you can measure yourself over time and just keep a log. You could set up another tab here to say on this date, this time we did, and a small action plan that might connect to improving those activities, okay? So it doesn't take a lot of time to do this, but it's an eye opener, and that's what it's designed to do. It's giving you some groundwork and some base on which you can start planning for rolling out effective training. Because, again, coming back to our good friend, Mr. Beresin, this is important, okay? High performers, the dark purple, look at the performance they're getting out of here as business results, because they have agile learning methodologies. They monitor learner engagement. They're experimenting with learning development and technology. They're doing cutting edge things. Low performers, not so much. Waterfall process. This is the classic story of the top telling the middle what they need to do to the bottom of your organization, hoping to get a change. That's draconian. It doesn't work anymore. They're not measuring learners' satisfaction. They're waiting for others to come up with ideas. So you can produce significant results and drive training just by understanding your organization's readiness to take in training, okay? No shortage of data that points to the value and the impact that we have here, but really using an assessment to understand your organizational readiness before you deliver training is a big eye opener, and it will change the way you are delivering training, and it will make you more effective when you do choose to pull the trigger and execute on training. Stephanie, I think I've covered it all with a few minutes to spare. Are we okay?
Yeah, I think we did. So just to bring it all back to the employee life cycle wheel. So as mentioned at the beginning, we covered off the hiring piece as well as the onboarding piece. Today, we got you started on the learning part of the wheel. And next month, we're going to stay in the pink, in the growing, and take a look at performance. And so obviously you can see just by what we talked about today, the interconnectivity and the dependencies between all these different elements in the employee life cycle. You know, sometimes it's a bit of what came first, the learning or the performance issues, and what leads to what. So next month we will look at performance. So in terms of next steps, obviously we're here to help with anything that we can. So we are going to share this deck and the audit that Dan just went through so that you can complete that for your organization. We will share the Josh Bearson study, a link to it, so you can download it, the Untangling the HR Tech Market 2021. We'd be happy to set up some time with you to review your audit results or to have you learn more about what we can do and how we can help you overcome any of your business challenges in terms of trying to improve the candidate and employee experience. And make sure that you plan to attend the next virtual event. You can register. It's on May 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Breathing new life into performance management. So you can look forward to what we will be able to present to you with that. Now, I think if there are any more questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. There is one question about previous recordings. They are available on our website. So if you go, there's a section where we have archived webinars. And so you can click on any of our previous webinars and access the materials as well as the recording to those sessions. So if you do have any trouble, again, my email address is right here. Please reach out to me directly or to Dan, and that goes for if there are additional questions as well. Now, there is another question here, Dan. So I don't know if you want to tackle that for the group.
So the SuccessFactors LMS versus Litmos. So ostensibly they do the same objectives. The SuccessFactors LMS is embedded and entrenched in the same user interface and look and feel. So it's designed to be part of an integrated talent suite within all of the other talent modules and delivered through connectivity and management of hierarchy and features and fields from your SuccessFactors instance. The Litmos system is delivered in a different look and feel. It is a little more agile. It's probably more designed to be delivered as a standalone. Probably what you need to understand is that SuccessFactors owns both, and is bringing the best of them together in every future release. We're getting tighter and tighter to a point where we're incorporating some of the more agile user fundamentals from Litmos into the enterprise LMS system and vice versa, to the point where eventually we won't have two platforms. We're going to have one that is the best of both of them.
Okay, great. And with that, I don't see any other questions. So again, thanks, Dan, for taking us through that. And thank you all for spending the last 53 minutes with us. You can look forward to an email with all of links to all of this information from us towards the end of the week. So again, thank you so much for your time, and please reach out if you do have any questions. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.